got they back. This is our house, this is our town, our time, Rebel 19, copy that. Everybody in the stands go bananas, scream loud, baby, don't hold back. Every foot, every yard, every first down, every touchdown with the cannons blast. Get it on, get it off, get the wave going.
The sports objective. Thank you there to Yunnan Cheek, the assistant track coach, and of course, great Pirate alum of ECU. We've got a great show for you, folks. And I tell you what, Bubba Rosenbaum, what's up, man?
Doing well, guys. I'm glad to see a game finally on the horizon after last week. Looking forward to getting back out there. Hopefully a better effort this time around, but I'm looking forward to South Carolina coming to Greenville for the first time since 1997.
No doubt about it. Hey, Kyle Barber, what's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? Looking forward to this game this weekend. I don't know really what to expect. We'll get into it and break it down here with Chris, but it's an interesting game. Anytime you got a first-year head coach and them going on the road for the first time, you don't know what you're going to get. And quite frankly, I don't think we know what we are yet.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Kyle, I don't think you've been able to sleep for the last couple weeks. College football, there's a college football game on every night.
Except tonight. There's no damn college football game on tonight.
I had to mess with you, man, a little bit there. Welcome into the show. Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. We love you, man. You've been good to us since day one that we're looking for just previewing South Carolina. And this is probably the only week they'll be talking about how we don't want your team to win. Otherwise, we'll be right there with you. We love South Carolina. And we think that you have a great up-and-coming coach, too, with Shane Beamer. Like him a lot. And, of course, respect what his dad did at Virginia Tech. So we wanted to bring you back on. It hasn't been too long ago we had you on, and now here we are again. Game week, out of the gate, how are things in Columbia? What are your thoughts going into the game for Saturday at noon?
Well, first things first, Dave, Kyle, Bubba, appreciate you guys having me on. It is a pleasure to be back on. Always fun talking ball and talking shop with you guys. And I agree with Kyle. I'm very glad college football is back, and I'm enjoying watching each and every single game, basically every single night. But no, things are well in Columbia right now. Of course, when you're 1-0, spirits are high. I would say the first game of the Shane Beamer era went exactly as you hoped it would. We all know you were playing a lesser opponent. I'll tell you guys this. I'm excited for this weekend for different reasons than I was excited for last weekend, because I really looked at the game last weekend, guys. Again, we talked in the preseason about how things had gone in the preseason with Shane Beamer and the honeymoon phase and how he had crushed, his first 7-8 months on the job, if you will. But of course, we all know you get in the fall camp and you got to put a team on the football field. And that's really where the culture is built. We're going to find out, what you are in 2021. And, that first game, I looked at it as, yes, the X's and O's, and you wanted to see certain players and win the football game. But I was excited for last week because I feel like the game last week really symbolized and signified the beginning of a new era for Gamecocks football and sort of the rebirth of the Gamecocks football program and hope being injected back into the South Carolina football program. I'm excited for this weekend because we didn't learn anything necessarily. I mean, you can't take anything away from a game like that against a team where you're just so obviously more talented than them. I'm excited for this weekend because I think we will learn some things about South Carolina. I think we're going to start to learn some things about Gamecocks football, what this 2021 team has, what are its strengths, what are its deficiencies, and just what type of season it's going to be, guys, because I'll tell you this right now, and I told you guys in the preseason, this was the most important game for South Carolina's 2021 season, and I stand by that. Just less than 48 hours away from kickoff. I think when you look at the scope of the 2021 season, listen, if South Carolina loses this football game, it doesn't, whether they win or lose, that does not determine whether the Shane Beamer era is going to be a success or failure in Columbia. But it's a game in the scope of this year. If South Carolina does not win, I believe you can basically kiss your bowl hopes goodbye. I think it's a game you cannot lose if you're looking to hit that 6-win or more mark. But again, right now, as we sit less than 48 hours away from kick, I think fans are very optimistic going in this one. I've been surprised at some of the score predictions I've seen from some Gamecock fans. And I think vibes are high. And I mean, as you guys know, though, college football is so week to week, man. You know what I mean? One week you win and your fan base is ecstatic, and the next week you win and everybody's terrible and fire everyone. So just buckle up and hang on for dear life. And I'm expecting a really good ball game Saturday. I think it's honestly going to be one of the better games for South Carolina on this season.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, speaking of being surprised, the line opened at South Carolina -2.5, and then it very quickly went East Carolina -4. or -5. So you had a dramatic swing there in just a matter of a few hours on Sunday, and then now you said it's 1.5 to South Carolina, right, Kyle?
It opened it opened to South Carolina -3. It swung to East Carolina
Okay.
-4, and then as of tonight, in most places to South Carolina -2. A couple of books have it to South Carolina -1.5. So, Chris, I don't know how much you analyze gambling. I don't gamble, but I love analyzing it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if you look at South Carolina opening -3, a little surprised at that. I actually thought you guys would be -6. And then when it jumped so fast, there's some handicappers out there that really like us in the upset. And when they put all the money on us early, the early money, it flipped the line to us being the favorites. Now it's came back around because everybody else sees us as the favorite, and they're putting the money on South Carolina. I don't know if you followed it as close as I have.
So we talk every Wednesday. We talk SEC gambling picks and best bet. And yeah, I mean, I used to bet on sports fairly often. I don't do it quite so much anymore just because locked in with the business. And I'm like, you know what? That's just one less thing that I need to worry about is like putting the money down and dealing with that side. But no, I'm the same as you. I love looking at the Vegas lines and the over-unders. And, I know fans will look at it and say, well, it doesn't even matter. Like, who cares what the spread is? But I think it's cool to get what is the national perception of this game, because Vegas is right more often than not. I think we can all agree those mansions out there in the desert, they're not built off winners' money. Like, those guys aren't idiots. They know what they're doing. I mean, for example, South Carolina, I found one line last week. They were a 42.5 point favorite and they won by 46. So those people know what the hell they're talking about. But, man, that was crazy, though. I mean, like you said, the way the line swung from South Carolina to ECU and then back to South Carolina. And I'll tell you this, man, I don't know if it's because of fans maybe overreacting to a 46-0 win over EIU. And I think there's an overreaction on both sides, by the way, guys. I think there's an overreaction to people seeing South Carolina's final score of 46-0 and thinking, the Gamecocks maybe are a little bit better than they probably are. And I think there's an overreaction to East Carolina, people seeing ECU's first game. And I'll be honest, I was surprised at how that game went. I mean, I knew App State was good, but I did not expect the type of butt whooping they laid on the Pirates. But I think ECU is probably a little bit better than they showed. You factor that in with South Carolina's questions at quarterback, continued questions in the secondary. The offensive line was good last week. It wasn't great against the hapless EIU front. Still questions at wide receiver, with injuries and stuff like that too. With, Kevin Harris, we know now is going to be back. But I think you couple all of that, plus you're on the road. I think that's where you saw this line shift so much back and forth. But I had buddies saying, I think it'll be a 9-point, 10-point spread. And I just told them, I was like, man, I'd be shocked if the Gamecocks are more than a touchdown favorite. So, Vegas expects this to be a close game. I tend to expect this to be a close game. So I'm expecting a battle at Dowdy-Ficklen. There's no doubt.
And Chris, that's the thing that I was going to mention is the very fact that when you're talking about fans are up and down, it's ironic because Kyle has been, I'm going to give him credit where credit's due, and I try to all the time, but Kyle has been talking about that the App State game will be more of a challenge for us, meaning what he was talking about was that he feels like with the South Carolina game being home and you got, the atmosphere with Dowdy-Ficklen, we feel like with
App State's just more established. I mean, the sum of the parts is better for South Carolina. South Carolina is more talented than East Carolina or App State. But sometimes it's not about the sum of the parts. It's about the complete product. And that's what App State has. They got a bunch of super seniors. They've had turnover with coaching, but they keep that same coaching tree. Their new offensive coordinator is a guy that was there before. I mean, so they know what they're doing. They have a system. Whereas South Carolina, extremely talented, but brand new coaching staff, brand new system. So when I said I thought App State was going to be the bigger challenge, I meant because they're just clicking on all cylinders. They're like Boise. They're like the Sun Belt version of Boise State. They stay in their own little coaching tree. They when a coach leaves, they hire somebody from that little tree, and they just keep clicking along.
Well, Kyle, like you mentioned, like I was saying, I think before we jumped on off air, Gamecock fans are very confident, and I've been very, very openly. I'm cautiously optimistic about Saturday, but I've been very clear that this is a game that South Carolina could lose, and a lot of fans, they just can't compute that. They cannot process that. How could South Carolina lose to East Carolina? And I had somebody comment today. They said, I mean, are we worse than Appalachian State? And I said, do you think South Carolina would beat App State right now? I mean, realistically, I'm not trying to talk down the Gamecocks program, but like you mentioned, like, yes, South Carolina top to bottom, they've recruited better than Appalachian State. They're a better football team, individual players than App State, but I can guarantee you App State would be favored over South Carolina. There's just no question. So give credit to App State. They built a great program, but
well, the last time App State played South Carolina, and you guys were a much better football team then.
You are correct. Thanks for reminding me.
I mean, no, it's one of those things. It's the same thing East Carolina's dealt with UNC and NC State for 100 years. We you know, when we have our program rolling, they still just can't. You know, I remember when we beat North Carolina 70-41. Their players were talking trash before the game
and after
about
the game.
and after. Yeah, they had players saying they still ain't better than us.
We're still better than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was telling my good buddy, I was like, you know, I feel like the perception of East Carolina football is like, for me, it's not really college football season until I randomly flick on my TV and see East Carolina inexplicably beating Virginia Tech or North Carolina or NC State. That just feels like common practice at this point. Like, that's a yearly thing. It seems like. So.
And it's funny you mentioned that. That's one thing that I don't like about this game. Your coach Shane Beamer knows our history. He was rattling it off. Mm-hmm. You know, he's been there. He's been a part of getting beat by East Carolina after they beat Ohio State. Shane Beamer, I don't know if anybody talked to him about this. He wanted our job back in 2016 when Ruffin McNeil was fired. Shane was on his dad's staff at Virginia Tech. Frank retired, and Shane was looking for a job, and he wanted their head coaching job, and didn't get it at the time. They didn't, you know, our athletic director at the time was a freaking moron, but he didn't feel Shane was qualified, and at the time, and you know, so Shane's probably got a little. I'm sure he remembers not getting the job here in 2016.
Hey, Kyle, how about the last time we had another coach last year? That team, Georgia State. You remember them?
Sean Elliott. Yeah, Sean Elliott. Also, when he was y'all's interim coach, he wanted our job in 2018 when we hired Houston. So you know, Georgia State beat us pretty good down there. But anyways, neither here nor there. But the question was with Beamer knowing our history so well, being so familiar with the program, I'm sure he's been letting your football team know the upsets we pulled over the years against Power 5 programs. And have you or any of the media mentioned to him? Were you aware that he had tried to get this job?
Nobody's brought that up, actually, believe it or not. Nobody has mentioned that. Nobody's brought it up. But I will say, just back to your point, though, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think this is a game that, you know, if South Carolina thinks it's just going to roll its helmet out there and get to 2-0, I think you're going to get your ass whooped. I mean, I'm just telling you right now, like ECU, they're going to give you their best shot. They're going to be ready to play. It's going to be a raucous Dowdy-Ficklen. I feel like this is a game that ECU fans, that program, I'm sure Mike Houston himself, they've had circled on the calendar. I mean, I remember a video in the preseason. It was Raji Harris, obviously, the running back from the state of South Carolina. You know, they asked him, you know, which game are you most looking forward to? And without hesitation, he said South Carolina. So I'm sure there's a lot of kids on that roster that maybe, you know, if they're using that as momentum, that, you know, maybe they're from the state and they didn't get an offer or they didn't get looked at as hard as they should have by South Carolina, and they'll have that chip on their shoulder. So, but that's definitely a very interesting dynamic, Kyle. I didn't even know that Coach Beamer wanted the job. So I'm sure you guys look back and wish he would have gotten it, because Montgomery, I don't think he was quite the answer. I don't think Pirate fans are too fond of him.
No, I don't know what Montgomery would be the answer to any question. No, yeah, and then just to be frank, when we hired Beamer, you know, I don't know who was on Gilbert. Well, Gilbert wanted him here at the time. He came in with Houston, but anyway, he was on my short list because he was with Lincoln at Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley, who obviously was offensive coordinator here. Ruffin McNeil, our former head coach, was on Lincoln's staff. Shane was on my short list because I knew he knew the area. I knew he wanted the job, and I thought he could mend ties between East Carolina and Ruffin McNeil, which I still think needs to be done.
And here's another thing too, guys. We mentioned to you before is the fact that we had Skip Holtz, obviously his dad being Lou Holtz. This will be another situation where you have the son of a legendary coach, and like Kyle said, he could recruit well. He wanted it. He's, I mean, a tremendous. When he was assistant coach with you guys before, look at the talent that he brought into. Oh my gosh, to South Carolina, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the best recruiting classes or the best players at least to wear the garnet and black. I mean, you think he was the main recruiter for guys like Stephon Gilmore and Alshon Jeffrey and Connor Shaw, and helped with Lattimore, and the list goes on and on. So yeah, that's certainly one of the reasons Coach Beamer got the job, and you have to do that in today's day and age of college ball. You have to be an elite recruiter, and I think you're already seeing that with what he did, like we talked about before, guys, with what he did in June, reeling in 12 prospects, 12 commitments. I mean, that's an insane number. So definitely, I think Coach Beamer knows you've got to recruit to build it, and it's as much as the X's and O's matter, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. If you don't have the better players, more often than not, you're probably not going to win. So, yeah, and that's what South Carolina's got to get back to is those recruiting classes. And I think Gamecock Nation feels pretty confident that Shane Bieber can be that guy. That if there's anything that's going to there's anybody out there that's going to sell the University of South Carolina, it's Shane Beamer, a guy that knows the place better than anybody else. He's seen it at heights that it never been at before. He's seen it at its best, and I think he'll do a good job on the recruiting trail for sure.
Speaking of the Jimmies and Joes, what do you we know what Shane Beamer thinks of East Carolina. What kind of gauge can you pick up off the players on how serious they're taking this game? Obviously, I'm sure they're not going, well, hey, it's the same as Eastern Illinois. But do you get a sense that they know that East Carolina can beat them, or do you think they think this is a game they should just be able to out talent the opponent?
No, I think they're taking it very seriously. I mean, I'll tell you this: Shane Beamer, Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White. They've all been extremely complimentary of East Carolina. And again, fans are saying all week, coach speak. And I'm like, I think Shane Beamer just realizes the challenge. Like, I think he, again, like you mentioned, he was on those Virginia Tech staffs. Like, he gets it, right? He understands that you go there and you don't play the way you're supposed to. And I mean, you can get beat. There's no doubt. So I think this football team will take it seriously. I really, again, this early too in the Shane Beamer tenure, I think it doesn't even matter who you're playing. This team knows there's question marks all over. There's question marks about certain position units. There's question marks about just how good they are. So, if you don't roll into a game like this and feel like you got something to prove, this ain't the sport for you. You don't need to be at the University of South Carolina. So, no, and that's something I'll tell you guys going back to last weekend. I know it was EIU. You can't draw conclusions. But one of my big storylines going in that game was controlling the emotions. And South Carolina, should is like a curse word in Gamecock Nation. Oh, South Carolina should blow out this team. They should win this game. Should do this, should do that. But, South Carolina, you looked at it, you said they should win this game running away. But what I wanted to see was a football team that controlled the emotions, that attacked the game the right way. Hey, you're playing a lesser opponent, but don't worry about that. Don't lower your level of play to your competition. Go out there and execute, handle your business. And I thought South Carolina approached it the right way. They looked focused from the opening snap. They had control of that game from the opening snap. And I commended Shane Beamer and Satterfield and Clayton White and that entire coaching staff for having those guys ready to play and focused and locked in. So I'd expect nothing less again on Saturday. I think Shane Beamer certainly is preaching that to his team that, hey, I've been to Greenville and gotten beat, and you will get beat as well if you don't take this thing seriously and play your best football. And South Carolina will need to play its best football to win. So no, I would be absolutely shocked, Kyle, if this is a football team that comes in big-headed. I can almost assure you they will not. They'll take this game seriously, and I think they understand they've got to go out there and execute and play really good football to have a chance to win.
And Chris, you made a great point too. The very fact that you were talking about South Carolina needing the win. East Carolina the same way, because here's the situation. Kyle, I'll give him credit too. Again, you have a 0-1 team against a 1-0 team. If East Carolina doesn't win on Saturday, to say it's a must win, people say a must win. Well, it is a must win in the sense of you have Marshall on the road. You would like to think you would be Charleston Southern, but you look at our schedule. And if you want to get to 6 wins, you have to have an upset against South Carolina.
Well, you don't have to, Dave. If we lose South Carolina, then go beat Marshall on the road. I think we got to get to 2-2 before we get in the conference play. So we can lose this one and go beat Marshall next weekend, but then you're putting yourself in a must-win situation on the road.
And I would, and not to cut you off, Kyle, but I would say this because you mentioned the phrase "must win," right? And that's such an overused term in sports because technically, unless it's a Game 7 or it's the final game, it's not technically a must win. And that I joke to people, I'm like, I feel like it's a little aggressive to call Game 2 of the Shane Beamer era a must win game. But I look at it this way for the Gamecocks. It may not be a must win, but it's a can't lose. You can't lose it and get to a bowl game, in my opinion. And again, I know Kyle might disagree that, hey, this is a football team. You get better as you go, and maybe you
Mhm.
spring a couple upsets late in the season. And so getting to 6 is still possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but
Right.
if you're putting percentages, again, if we're talking gambling, if you're putting percentages on it, South Carolina's odds of making a bowl game, I think they drop significantly if you lose this game, because I just think you have to take advantage of the front half of your schedule, because while you might get better week to week to week, the schedule gets tougher in the second half. So you might get better, but that might not show against the likes of Texas A&M and Mizzou on the road and Auburn and Clemson. You might not see that. So I think this is a game, again, if you're South Carolina, it may not be a must win, but it's a can't lose if you want to get to 6, in my opinion.
Speaking
Chris,
of, go ahead,
taking a
Bubba.
look at the Gamecocks, you obviously have a tremendous running attack. Kevin Harris didn't play against Eastern Illinois. He's still, and yes, is an inferior opponent. 260 yards or thereabouts for the Gamecocks on the ground. But just talk about a running back room. From everything we hear, Harris will be available. Then you also have White, Lloyd, McDowell, some tremendous talent there in that running back room.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, guys. I mean, we also learned tonight, Shane Beamer's call-in show, he confirmed Kevin Harris will be good to go 110%, not on a pitch count, not on a rep count, so he'll be fully let loose, which is a huge boost, I think, for the South Carolina running game, because as good as they were last week, I think Kevin Harris does bring a different dynamic. Again, guys, he led the SEC in rushing for a reason. Really, really good football player. But yeah, like I said, an embarrassment of riches. I mean, you talk about Marshawn Lloyd. We saw flashes from him last week, and I think he'll be a guy that South Carolina will use week after week after week. And I think, honestly, Marshawn Lloyd will evolve probably into your number one running back. Zaquandre White, man, what a story he's been. Just absolutely burst on the scene in the spring game, picked up right where he left off, had that long 65 or 70-yard touchdown run last week, and he's a guy, I tell you, it's you maybe weren't thinking of him first when you think of the running back room, but he needs to touch the football more, because it seems like early on, at least, every time he touches it, good things happen. He runs really, really tough. He runs seeking contact. Like, he's a running back that runs like a linebacker with the ball in his hand. So you like what Quan White gives you. Juju McDowell, the true freshman, that he was the rave of fall camp. He looked good in limited action. You've also got Rashad Amos. So the beautiful thing, guys, is this too, is that a lot of times you'll have multiple running backs and the styles are all pretty similar. I feel like each of these guys, they offer you something different. That's the beauty of it. South Carolina's got plenty of change of pace in their backfield. They've got a big bruiser. They've got a home run on the outside. They've got a mix of both. So it truly is an embarrassment of riches. And again, that's what South Carolina's going to lean on. I mean, Shane Beamer mentioned again in his call-in show, they're going to run 4 guys probably on Saturday. So you're going to see them all. You're going to see them all. Again, a heavy dose of Kevin Harris, I would say, in his return. I would expect Kevin Harris to be fired up, his first action of the season, and wants to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, if you will, and that he is the guy. And again, of course, all that stable of backs, they'll certainly lean on them on Saturday. But yeah, it's the strength of your offense, maybe arguably the strength of your football team. And I'd expect the Gamecocks, especially when you look at the matchup and the way ECU has struggled to stop the run. I think if you're that room, you got to be licking your chops and thinking, you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're going to go over 200 as well, just like all these other teams have done. So you'll see a lot of the Gamecocks ball carriers on Saturday, I believe.
Chris, who's going to start a quarterback for you? I know what I would do if I was Shane.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's as simple as this, Kyle. If Luke Doty's 110%, he should start and play the entire game. If he's not, he shouldn't. Bottom line. Listening to Shane Beamer in his call-in show, and again, this was just a couple of hours ago, I do not get the feeling that he will be ready. And there have been a lot of rumors today specifically. There's a lot of smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire, but there's been a lot of smoke that Zeb Noland will indeed be getting the nod at quarterback. Again, if Luke Doty's not 100%, don't play him. It's just not worth it. It's week 2. There's no need in risking him. Zeb Noland, while he's not that dynamic guy behind center, he's not that he's not fleet of foot. He doesn't offer the same skill set Luke Doty does. He showed you last week he's capable of being that steady hand, being that field general. I don't think he's a guy as a veteran that's going to throw you out of a football game or make a silly mistake or, let the moment get to him, right? This is a guy that's played a lot of football. So I think it's going to be Nolan, guys, at this point. I mean, who knows? Does Luke Doty see a drive? Does he see a quarter? Does he whatever? I don't know. But I think the answer, again, is just as simple as if he's 100%, he should play. He's QB1. If he's not, he shouldn't. And especially when you're dealing with the foot. And I mean, if he's not 100%, I mean, it takes away one of his greatest assets, which is running the football. So from what I'm hearing, guys, right now, I think it's going to be Zeb Noland for the second straight week.
Hey, and that's what's my thinking. If he wasn't ready, 100%, like you're talking about, because of his ability to run the ball. I would play Zeb because of your running game and because of our inability to stop the run up to this point. I mean, you guys have a lot of talent at the running back position. How's your O-line? I don't even, how did your O-line look this past week?
So I'll tell you this. I think that's the position unit that fans left Williams-Brice Stadium. They left clamoring for more. I don't know if maybe my expectations were just set a little too high. I really expected South Carolina to just completely manhandle and bully EIU. And you look at the statistics. I mean, you ran for, like Bubba said, about 260 yards. So statistically, that's a good number. But it wasn't quite that dominant performance that I think we all wanted to see. Now, granted, EIU was sent in the house. I think their number one objective and number one goal was we got to at least try to take away the running game, make this dude Zeb Nolan prove that he can beat us. But you feel good about the offensive line. Coach speak, I know, but coaches say that, teams improve the most from week 1 to week 2. I think you'll see the offensive line make that jump. I mean, again, 4 or 5 starters returning, over 80 career starts. Yeah. It's one of those scenarios where I'm not worried about the offensive line so much. And again, I'm not saying they played bad last week, but if we're nitpicking, and that's kind of what you have to do when you play a team like EIU and you just blow them out and, dismantle them like you did. But the thing that is encouraging about the offensive line is, like, it's not like you don't have the players. Like, I think we feel good about the talent we have there. We have the depth there. I think there's 7 or 8 guys they feel really, really good with. And of course, especially that starting 5. But I think you look at this ball game specifically and that matchup, that's where South Carolina is going to lean. I mean, you feel like you should be able to have the advantage in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. And I think that's where it's going to start for South Carolina. So I think Gamecock fans, they want to see more out of the offensive line, most certainly. But I feel good about that unit going in this week and throughout the season, that they will be a strength for this football team.
Yeah, there's no reason they shouldn't be. They got 4 or 5 starters back. They could run block last year. It's not like they forgot how to. And I was looking at your scores from last year. And really, quite honestly, you went 2 and 8. There was, towards the end of the year, your offense was not producing. Right. But the early in the middle of the year, you guys were in pretty much every game. So I saw a couple of those scores and I really didn't like them. I was like, oh no. we would not have been that competitive with some of the schools that you guys were competitive with, and that's you guys weren't as bad last year as the record indicates, particularly at the beginning and middle of the year.
I mean, there's talent on this roster, and there's no question. I mean, that's the one thing you can say that the previous head coach and regime did was recruit. They recruited talent. I mean, no doubt. I mean, you look at the guys. Somebody posted today a depth chart screenshot from 2018. There's like 13 guys on that depth chart that have played in the NBA. I mean, they recruited good players during Muschamp's tenure, but just were never able to put it together. Some great individual performances, but just some head scratching decisions, obviously in-game decisions. And of course, we don't have to get into all that, but I mean, there's some good players on this football team. There's talent on this football team, no doubt. It's just putting it all together. Again, there are obvious deficiencies. There are obvious question marks for this football team. And I think ECU, where I look at them and I look at this game, and again, I think ECU is going to give South Carolina its best shot. I look on the outside. I think the outside, if for whatever reason, the defensive line, for example, is not able to dominate and get after Holton Ahlers. Of course, I know he was sacked 4 times against Appalachian State. I know that they were all over Holton Ahlers last week. But if for whatever reason they're not able to get there, or one of my big keys to the game is containing Holton Ahlers. If you allow him to get outside the pocket and all of a sudden the quarterback run game becomes a factor, and you're asking a secondary that is very unproven to hold up even longer in coverage. And Holton Ahlers is a guy that can improvise, that can beat you with his legs and arm, but he can make that big throw. Maybe a guy gets loose, maybe a busted coverage, and all of a sudden, we all know how momentum works in college football, and these are 18 to 22-year-old kids, and you got a crazy Dowdy-Ficklen, and all of a sudden you look up and you're shell-shot a little bit. So, again, there's talent on this football team. There's good individual pieces, but I still think there are some holes in the roster. But, looking back to last year, man, it just never came together. It just never came together. And that's why there was a change made. So we'll leave it at that.
And one of the things that I think that will be interesting to see is we're hearing about 43,000. So guys, help me out. Bubba, Kyle, when's the last time we've had 43,000 in the stadium?
I would have. Well, UNC in 2018 was probably somewhere around that number.
That was what I was thinking. So.
I'm hearing it could be over 45. So this will be the closest we've had our capacity is 50,000. This will be the closest. With as bad as we've been over the last 5 years, this will be the closest we've been to 50,000. We'll probably have a bigger crowd than that North Carolina game in 18. So this should be our biggest crowd. I'd have to go back and look, maybe since 16.
Yeah, I think ECU fans are going. ECU fans, I would expect, are going to show up and show out. And I feel like ECU fans and Gamecock fans are similar, that they like to consume their cold beverages and be rowdy and obnoxious. So I got a pretty good feeling it's going to be a heck of an environment. That's for sure.
Yeah, which was a little later in the day.
Friday night. Are they? They're going to start drinking Friday night, and they'll just keep drinking beer for breakfast. And
it's just like pouring gasoline on a fire at that point, man.
Hey, Chris, quick scheduling question. You guys have any future games coming up with Coastal?
I don't believe so. That's a great question. I don't believe so. I mean, the way that South Carolina tried to dodge and duck this game, I doubt we're going out of our way to put Coastal on the schedule. So I don't think so.
That was one of the questions I had is, do you think that from your perspective with South Carolina, that was another perfect time to bring that up. We like the series. Obviously, it's a regional rivalry, in my opinion, just like Virginia Tech, who won't, unfortunately, they lose, and so they won't come on our schedule anymore. But anyway, that's a whole other show, as they say. But as far as South Carolina is concerned, I've heard a lot of the media, East Carolina-wise, Greenville-wise, saying this might be the last opportunity you ever see South Carolina come to Greenville. Are we that much of a low hanging fruit, or like we're like the worst team ever that they won't come back to us anymore?
Guys, I don't make the schedule, so that's a little above my pay grade, but I love it. I love it personally. I will tell you this, I'll be totally honest, because I know people love to slam schools like Alabama, and I know Florida in the past has been accused of this, but even that school in the upstate that, people love to say, oh, your schedule stinks, you don't play anybody, and people will ask me, hey, what big out of conference game do you want to see? We should play Michigan, we should play Texas, we should play Southern Cal. I'll tell you guys this. You know what's cooler than having a hard schedule? Winning games. I'd rather just play EIU 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, the goal is to win the most games possible. And while the out-of-conference matchups are really, really cool, and I love this game. I will say that. I'll lead with that. I think the series between South Carolina and ECU has been wildly entertaining. It's been very competitive. There's been some really, really good games. I know East Carolina fans feel like they should have beaten South Carolina one of these past few times for sure. But for me, man, with the scheduling, again, I don't know what the Gamecocks are thinking. I don't know. I know South Carolina's opening up with Virginia Tech in 2025, which will be a really cool game for very obvious reasons. But I don't know. I don't really know what their method on scheduling is. I mean, I'd love to see South Carolina, East Carolina. I'd love to see these type of road trips happen more often. I think it's really cool to go to a stadium like Dowdy-Ficklen, a place that you never go. I mean, again, guys, it's been 1997. How did it take that long for this game to happen? So,
we can answer that.
It's supposed to be 2019, my friend.
Well, hey, that's Ray Tanner's job, not mine. So,
yeah. Thank you.
No, I think it's getting to the point where a lot of SEC schools just aren't even going to do 2-for-1s with so-called group of 5, and I think that.
Well, I think they don't see the value in it, because again, it's a game that's viewed that if you win, well, you were supposed to win, and if you lose, it's a black mark on you. So again, like a school like Virginia Tech, I probably wouldn't want to go to Dowdy-Ficklen either if I lost there. Like, why would you want to do it? So. I don't know.
When you can play at Williams-Brice Stadium, have a 7th home game against, a MAC opponent or whoever, and, and pack, anywhere from like 75 to 82, 83,000 in, and have all that money flowing in, why would you?
But I think a game like this is great for college football. It's great for the college football fan. It's great to see a matchup like this you don't normally get to see. And again, especially having that regional flavor to it. There's going to be a lot of familiarity on both sides and with fan bases, and I'm sure with families and friends and all that. So I don't know. I think if you love the sport of college football, I think it's a great thing. So
what's your first conference road game?
Georgia next weekend.
Well, I was gonna say, well, no, this game will get you prepared for your first conference road.
Yeah,
game,
I don't think anything's quite gonna get Carolina ready for that.
Yeah, so yeah, y'all Well, I hope you're looking ahead. Maybe you get the old look ahead. You're looking ahead to Georgia. That's what I'm hoping for.
That'd be a mistake. I can tell you that right now. That'd
go
be
ahead.
a mistake.
Go get the dogs are on the clock, baby.
I'll tell you this: the wildest take of the week, or one of the wildest I've seen, is there have been fans that have said, "Well, even if Luke Doty's 100%, we're not going to need him this weekend." Which that alone is crazy.
I agree with him. I agree with him.
But saying we're not going to need him this weekend, let's just save him for Georgia. And I'm like, you really want his first action of the season to be against them?
Save him. I don't know. I don't even think you need Harris. Save him for Georgia.
Kyle is very confident in South Carolina this weekend. You must be hammering the -2. I mean, you have to be.
Save Harris for Georgia. I look. Here's the thing, and God knows our fan base is going to hate me for this, and I hope Coach Houston ain't listening. I think the style of football Coach Houston plays is not conducive to pull off upsets. And what I mean by that is he likes to play physical, hard-nosed football. He likes to run the ball downfield, and he likes to line it up with the defensive line and get after it. And I think that's good when you get the talent and you're playing against equal competition. But I think when you're trying to beat a South Carolina, that's not what you need to do. You need to be in an air raid type system, slinging the ball everywhere that South Carolina don't get to see every week. I think that's how you pull off upsets against a team that's more talented than you. Now, I think the reason we may have a chance to pull this one off is because we know what we're doing. We're year 3 of the system. You guys are in year 1, game 2. And I'm thinking if we pull off this upset, it's because of mistakes on South Carolina's part.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I look at it, man. Mike Houston actually scares me because what he did against South Carolina at the City.
He was running the option.
Of course.
The triple option.
Yeah, the triple option.
I would agree. That's something you guys don't see every week. But just trying to play straight up football and run the ball at you, you guys are going to hit us in the mouth.
Yeah, you might see the option.
I can tell you this, Kyle. I would just say this. I don't like that methodology or that game plan of if the guys are good to go and you're telling them to sit out. I don't like the message it sends of, oh, we don't need you. This game is not that big of a deal.
No,
these
you're
guys
100%
aren't that
right.
good. I think you're going to need to play
there.
a good game to win. That's how you get beat in my mind. If you take a game.
Oh, no. I was being facetious there. If you guys don't play your best players, no, we'll beat you. We'll beat you. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I love Mike Houston, and I think he will be very successful here eventually. And I think in conference play we will be just fine. But I think when you're trying to pull an upset, he doesn't run the best system to pull off an upset. In my opinion, prove me wrong this weekend, Coach.
There you go. Put him on the spot. Mike Houston's on the clock this week for Kyle.
Now, Chris, you have that hat, Beamer ball, obviously the staples of Beamer ball, an excellent ground game, a tremendous defense, and then special teams play. The Gamecocks blocked 2 punts against Eastern Illinois. Coach Beamer said they could have had 4. Tell us about the Gamecocks special teams.
Yeah, it was incredible. 2 block punts by the same guy, Debo Williams, had a heck of a week and was named the freshman of the week in the SEC. So kudos to him. But they also had the trick play, if you will, on the first touchdown on the 2-point conversion.
Yeah,
the swinging gate
that.
play. Yeah, the swinging gate play. So, I said this in the preseason, and I'll continue to say it again because I don't think you can operate or predict week to week that your team's going to block a certain number of kicks or return this or do that. It's very hard to predict special teams plays like that. But what I feel confident in saying is that South Carolina has one of, if not the best coached or most well-coached special teams unit in all of college football. And that, to me, is what showed last week. And again, inferior opponent, but still, that looked like a group. They know what they were doing. I feel like South Carolina knew exactly how to attack EIU. This wasn't something where, hey, we're just going to send a unit out there and they just kind of go into the motions. And I think also, too, like to be good at special teams, you got to take pride in it. You got to want to be good at it. Like you got to give the effort and the heart and the fight. And, those special team guys, coaches will tell you, those are the stars of tomorrow. You know what I mean? Those are the guys, they make their name on special teams. And in 2 or 3 years, I mean, I had a former player tell me a story that, he was on special teams with Pat DeMarco and Chris Culliver and Melvin Ingram. It was like, and like those were special teams guys at that moment. So, no, it was a great first week for Beamer ball, certainly. The 2 block punts, and they were pressuring them all night. And, like I said, that swinging gate too. So special teams is certainly going to be a big part of this football team. And you definitely think for a team that's fighting again to get to that 6-6 mark, they're going to be scratching and clawing to do whatever they can. It's going to play a big role. I mean, you look at a game like this. I mean, we all know how how much of a momentum shifter, momentum changer special teams can be. So it was great to see. You know, I don't feel like South Carolina's ever been able to hang its hat on special teams. It's always just sort of been there. So to see South Carolina making plays in that first game in the special team side and really just dominate all facets was really fun to watch.
And Chris, thank you for bringing that up about the swinging gate. I meant to mention that as well. And I love it because, you know, it forces the opponent to prepare for it. And then it sends a message to the Gamecock team, you know, Coach Beamer sending that message early on that, hey, we're going to be aggressive. This is a calculated move. And I love it for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, it's like it's you practice it all the time, right? It's like a trick play. Like you practice it all the time, but it's like, oh man, we're probably never going to run that. We'll never do that. So like you said, that's a great point. Just letting his football team know that, like, hey, we'll do this. If the opponent gives us the opportunity, they don't adjust, we'll do it. We'll snap it. We'll go. So yeah, that was really cool. I mean, that was something I don't think I've ever seen a South Carolina football team do something like that, like the swinging gate or any type of special trick play for a 2-point conversion. So that was very neat for sure. And I mean, who knows, that down the road could win you a football game, could be a positive impact in a football game. So
no doubt about it. Speaking of trick plays, are there other trick plays you think you'll see with Shane? I know it's year one for Shane Beamer. Do you expect to see more of that?
I would think so at some point. I mean, I said this in the preseason that, you know, I need to see a Luke Doty to Dak Joyner to Josh Vann or whoever's down the field type of trick play. I mean, because you got Dak Joyner who plays quarterback also. You know, Luke Doty, what he can do. Heck, he played some wide receiver last year. So, you know, I don't think they're going to be running like a trick play a week or anything, but, you know, I think Shane Beamer wants to have some fun. And I certainly would think they're going to have, hey, whatever they've got to do to move the football and gives them the best chance to score points and win games. I think they'll do it. So, I would not be shocked, though, to see. You got to definitely think there's some fake punts in there, some fake field goals. I mean, with Beamer ball, that's got to be a part of it. So I would definitely expect to see that, no doubt.
When it's all said and done, what do you see? Do you see South Carolina coming up and getting the victory in Greenville?
So, yeah, that's a great question, man. I figured you were going to put me on the spot. So every Friday, my official prediction drops on the podcast, but I'll tell you guys, you know, exactly what I said. Again, I am one that thinks, and again, there's a lot of optimism around the Gamecocks fan base right now, and I'm seeing a lot of fans pick double-digit score victories. I don't know if it's because I've spent all preseason long telling myself this is going to be a really close competitive game. I know ECU didn't look good in week one, and I know South kind of won 46-0. That's all fine and dandy, but this is a new week. This is a new game, and at home, this one's been circled. I fully expect East Carolina to give its best shot in this game. I fully expect it. And one of my keys to the game is weather the storm, because I think early in this game, and I'm sure you guys would agree, again, in front of a raucous Dowdy-Ficklen, ECU is going to want to come out guns a-blazing, punch South Carolina in the mouth, get the crowd involved, you know, get off to a fast start, and, you know, go from there and ride the momentum. I will tell you this, though. I just look at this game. ECU's got the athletes on the outside to give you a lot of problems. I really believe that. Holt Naylors, I think, is a very capable quarterback, and Rajay Harris, very good running back, and, again, I think he'll be playing with a chip on his shoulder. Jaquan McMillan, the defensive back, I think he's a really good player. If South Carolina gets in obvious passing situations, he's a guy, again, 4 INTs for you guys last year, had one last week against App State. Really, really capable guy, and a sort of a ball hawk back there. I just think as much as football changes, though, and as much as the game evolves, one thing remains consistent. If you can line up across a man and whip his ass every play and move bodies and move him out the way, your odds of winning are pretty good. And the positive for Shane Beamer when it comes to his football team, while there are question marks, 2 of the most certainties on his team are both lines of scrimmage. And that's where the obvious advantage is for South Carolina. I think they'll lean on that running game. You'll see all 4 running backs, 5 running backs in the football game. I think Kevin Harris has a big return. I think defensively, J.J. Nibare, Jordan Burch, Zach Pickens, you know, Aaron Sterling, Brad Johnson, Jordan Strawn. I think they'll be after Holt Naylors all afternoon. I think ECU will make some plays. I think they're going to be after Holt Naylors all day long, and ECU only able to run the ball for 86 yards last week against the Appalachian State front. And with all due respect, I think South Carolina's got a better front than Appalachian State. So I'm expecting a back and forth, really, really close ball game. Again, it would not surprise me if ECU jumped out to an early lead, but I think South Carolina rides a strong running game and a really, really good performance from the defensive line to pull out a 28-24 win. So I'm locked in at that. I think it's a really close competitive game. And, you know, if the talent discrepancy is much greater than I'm giving credit for, and South Carolina goes out there and wins by 21, so be it. But I just tend to think, again, guys, and Kyle mentioned, South Carolina is still, this is week 2 of year 1 of Shane Beamer. This is far from a perfect football team. There are question marks over the field, and we didn't get to see that in week 1, right? You weren't not challenged. There was no adversity you ran into. You will inevitably run into adversity this weekend. I'm excited to see how this football team responds, and we're going to start to get some answers to our questions. But again, I think you'll get answers in a victorious performance. I got Carolina 28-24.
You know, the biggest letdown for me, Chris, is the fact that Kyle was going to bring you some great barbecue from Eastern North Carolina. So, you know, we're going to bring it to you so whenever you come up, we're definitely going to take you out and get you some great barbecue, no doubt about it.
I'm telling you, I want to make a road trip, man. I'm not even joking. Like, I think that'd be a blast, honestly. So
I've got a ticket with your name on it. Seriously, everybody says that, but I can get you tickets, no doubt.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll see how things go. Do you have anything finally for him, Kyle?
No, we're going to give our scores now or wait till the end of the show?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Do we want to do it now?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, I'm gonna. I'm gonna go with in my mind. Doty's not playing. We got Zeb in. I can't remember what's Zeb's last name.
Nolan.
Zeb Nolan. Okay. I think South Carolina. This is our shot. This is how we do it. This is how the Pirates do it. South Carolina's going to be very conservative running the ball. I'm not sure what kind of receiver South Carolina has, if they have. Who's your stud receiver?
Well, the guy that started to establish himself last week, and again, like I said, I know you can't draw conclusions from the EIU game, but Josh Vann, former 4-star prospect, did have a pair of touchdown catches. So I thought he had a pretty good day. But again, your leading receiver against EIU was a running back.
Yeah.
So the wide receiver room is definitely a humongous question mark. And right now, until proven otherwise, I'd say it's a deficiency on this offense. So that's why I think you'll see South Carolina lean so heavily on the run game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very low scoring game. I think we're going to I think if East Carolina can avoid the turnovers, force Zeb into at least 2 turnovers, South Carolina will get their yards on the ground, but the Pirates are going to do just enough. I'm going to go even lower scoring than what Chris had. I'm going East Carolina 21, South Carolina 20.
Wow.
And Kyle, on that note, by the way, again, since you're a gambling guy, my best bet of the weekend, I think it's a no-brainer, the under 58. I think that is a no-brainer at this point.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, how can people listen to your podcast? We love the show, but we want everybody.
Dave, Bubba, no scores.
I like East Carolina. I think the one thing I see this like an even game. I think the crowd is going to make a big difference. I really believe in the crowd. I think there's a 9/11. We have a player that his dad died in 9/11. Not that it matters. I think certainly South Carolina has more talent. We tip your hat, there. And if you go by what's on paper, South Carolina wins. But I think the emotion's going to be great. There's a lot of people that wanted to be in the stands last year under Mike Houston. There's a lot of excitement with him. They could not. There was only, what was the most, Kyle, for that SMU game? I think 3 fans.
I think it was up a little from 7% to like 12%. I don't remember. It wasn't a lot of people, though.
But it wasn't a lot of fans. I think that there's a lot of factors in there. First home game at South Carolina. I think there's going to be, I don't know how many South Carolina fans, but you guys always travel well. So I'm just thinking on that. I'm going to go East Carolina. I like East Carolina by like 3. I think something like 31-28. It might be a little bit less than that, but I think that both teams will have success with running the football, and it'll be a tight. I think either way, it'll be a tight game. And if East Carolina loses, I think it's going to be a tight game like that as well. You could flip whatever team. So we'll see how it turns out. But I'm going to go just a shade with East Carolina. I think if it was with you guys, I think it was in Columbia, I think it would be like a touchdown or 10 points. I think it's that much of a difference playing in Greenville. I really do.
Rosenbaum.
He said he's gonna wait. He told me he's gonna wait. So
I will tell both you guys this too. Again, I think it's going to be a close game, obviously with my score, but it would not. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer for the Gamecocks that might be in here, but it would not shock me at all if South going to drop this one. And what scares me most going into this game is I just talked to you about the line of scrimmage, and that's where I feel like. And again, when you look at the different levels of football, like SEC to from Power 5 to Group of 5, and like a school like South Carolina and East Carolina, the athletes are pretty good at all the levels. I mean, there's a couple of receivers on the ECU roster that I wish we had. But line of scrimmage is typically where you see the biggest difference, right? The guys are just bigger, they're more agile, they're more athletic, they're just better. But I am saying a lot of the same things to you all right now and this week that I was saying, again, the week of the 2019 Appalachian State game. And that proved to not matter at all. So I am optimistic, but I am cautiously optimistic. A lot of our fans are riding the high of 1-0 and winning 46-0 and Shane Beamer and what, but I'm trying to tell everyone, expect a fight. I expect nothing less. It would shock me to see a blowout on Saturday. It would shock me.
All right, man. We want to promote your show, obviously, the Spurs Up show. Tell everybody how they find that, and obviously we look forward to seeing you at some point. And good luck to the Gamecocks, maybe next week against Georgia, the Dogs.
No, I appreciate you guys. We're probably going to need some luck in that one, but no, it's always a pleasure to chat with you guys again. The Spurs Up show. We're all over social media: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're even on TikTok. Obviously, the SpursUpShow.com. We've also got a store, tsus.store, where you can get like the hat you see, the Beamer Ball stuff. And we've got a ton of great merchandise as well. Drop a podcast daily, Monday through Friday. You can find that iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And we're also doing a daily live stream that's called The Daily Crow. Play on words, obviously, with The Daily Crow, noon to 2, a very interactive banter show like this where I take questions, comments, and calls. That is aired on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and of course on social media. That's where all the content's distributed, and we have guest interviews and a lot of good stuff. So it's a lot of fun, man. There's a lot of content. I pump out the content on a pretty regular basis, but we love it, man. It's a blast. So like I said, wherever you consume your media, you're going to find us. So
we relate to that. Over 500 episodes, 3.5 years we've been doing the show, and you do a great job, and look forward to having you back on. Maybe we can have you on during the heat of the SEC season. Love to have you back.
Yeah, would love to chat with you guys again. Dave, Kyle, Bubba, it's always a pleasure to talk ball with you guys. And, hey, best of luck on Saturday. Not too much, but best of luck. And, seriously, man, expecting a great game. Hate I can't be there, but we'll certainly let you guys know when I make my way up there, because that's definitely a priority for me, is experiencing a game day and a weekend in Greenville for sure. So
you're always welcome, man. We'll take care of you when you come up. All right. There's a great guest. And speaking of great guests and a guy that knows about South Carolina, Bubba, you've brought him on, and I know for not only 9/11, we'll talk about that here a little bit, but a guy that knows about South Carolina games, not only South Carolina games, but winning South Carolina games.
Yeah, this guy was 2-1 against the Gamecocks and defeated the Gamecocks in 1994 as well as 1996. Unfortunately, was a loser in 1997 in Greenville, oddly enough. But welcome back in former East Carolina defender Matt Semenza. Matt, how are things?
Guys, what's going on? It's always good to see you. Excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me on. I'm definitely looking forward to Saturday. There's something crazy going on with this game. The line swings with Vegas have been like a yo-yo, and they seem to have a pretty good read on it. So I'm excited about the game.
I think it's the other way. I don't think they have a good read on it. I think you look at that line early. There's clearly somebody. There was clearly a handicapper out there. When you look at them being favored by 3, and then it flipping to us by 4, there was a lot of early money going on us. So there's clearly a handicapper out in Vegas and a group of people that believes what he says that was all over the Pirates early. And now I think what's happened since then is the average person saw East Carolina as a favorite and said, "Oh, that's easy money on South Carolina."
That's right. They want to get their money on both sides. So there were some pretty extreme fluctuations there in the first 24 hours. I was shocked when I saw we went up to when we were a 4-point favorite. I was very surprised based on the way we played last week. So, hey, in college football, it's a week-to-week game. The biggest jump that teams make is from week 1 to week 2. So hopefully we can put it together this week and play a great game.
Well, hey, Matt, we have someone, Florida Ball 123, chiming in on YouTube. Before we dive into the Gamecocks, obviously 1995, East Carolina did not play South Carolina, but we did open the season against Peyton Manning at Neyland Stadium there in Knoxville. And so in that game against the Vols, did you get a sack of Peyton Manning?
I believe I did, yes. Yes, probably my claim to fame. That's my claim to fame. So, they won the game, so that's really what matters. But I did get a few good hits on Peyton Manning, so something I could tell my kids about. So, yeah.
That was a game I remember Mark Crandall in the offense. They moved it up and down the field between the 20s and just couldn't punch it in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Labor Day weekend of 95, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I remember that game very well. Matt, glad to have you back on. Obviously, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad you're coming on this week, is I know there's a lot of Pirate fans that are like, speaking of a yo-yo and up and down and all around and roller coaster, comparing Mike Houston now to Scotty Montgomery, which is ridiculous. But I want to say that publicly because that's outrageous. Those two names should never be mentioned in the same sentence.
Agreed.
And if we win this week against South Carolina, then, all of a sudden he's the best thing since sliced bread. But my question to you is, with you guys in the 90s, with having Coach Logan and the program was rolling during that time for most of the tenure under Logan, you guys had a swagger about you. Do you think that this year, I love you because you're so opinionated and spot on and very articulate. Do you think this team has a swagger, the chip on the shoulder? I hate that term because we use it so much. But at East Carolina, we don't have all the 5 stars running around. You have to have a sense of that chip on your shoulder. You didn't get picked. You were like one of the last guys picked, or you were not even though you probably have more talent than people realize, you're not the first guy picked. So how do you feel about that? Do you think the guys have, maybe it's unfair to compare different eras, different coaches, but how do you feel about now versus then?
I don't think they have it yet. I don't think they have it yet. I think to get to that point, you need to win some big games, right? So I think this team's at the point where they're still relatively young. We do have some experience, but we're still a relatively young team by most standards. And they need that signature win that's going to really propel them to the next level. So I think, in terms of that swagger, they're trying to get there, but they haven't quite had the opportunity to break through yet. They played a good ball game against SMU to finish up the season. But now what you need to do is you need to build on that, and you need to stack some wins together to get to that level. And, when you look back at those 90s teams, there was definitely a swagger. We had some incredible players. We had some incredible leaders on that team. And, our mindset, regardless of who we were playing, the mindset was we're going to go win a game. There were no moral victories. There was no going home. Oh, we played a good game. We lost to Alabama by 7, but we played a good game. There was disappointment. And the objective was to win. And I think this team can get there. And this week could be a good starting point if they can pull this off. But they're going to need to execute. And like I said, begin to stack some wins together to get to that point. I certainly can't wait to see it.
Yeah, Matt, talk about that. You talking about can't wait to get to see it. You're going to be able to be in attendance at Dowdy-Ficklen on Saturday. So just tell folks, what are you coming down Friday afternoon, I guess, with the 12 noon kickoff, and then hanging around for the weekend?
Yeah, guys, I'm excited to get down there. I don't have a chance to get down there very often. So I'm actually flying down with my son on Friday afternoon, and then we're going to drive into Greenville on Saturday with my father and his wife. And it's going to be a quick trip in and out, but we're excited about it. We can't wait to get into, Dowdy-Ficklen and have a great time. So it looks like the weather is going to be perfect. So it should be a great day. Plus it's 9/11, and a great day to celebrate the country and be in a stadium that's packed and have a good time.
Let's talk about that. I've got something else I'll bring up later. I'll save that. I was just getting ready to mention, but you mentioned this nice segue for 9/11. And I have a story too, as we shared in our group chat here in the group text, I should say, a couple of days ago. But I know you were there. You were there, right, in 9/11 on that day in New York City?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I actually was living in Manhattan for a few years during that time. I was there in Manhattan that day. I was a little further uptown. I believe I was in like the 30s, not far from Madison Square Garden. So I was further uptown when the first tower fell. So this day every year, it means a lot to me. I try to take some time and just kind of reflect on it. And, it really hits home every year when this date comes around for everybody. And I know we have a player on our team who I believe lost his father that day, which is a terrible thing. Sean Bailey, that's right. So I know this game's going to mean a lot to him as well. And what better way to honor your country and remember the people who fell that day than to have 45,000 people in a stadium standing for the national anthem, honoring our country and and enjoying themselves at a game. So really, really looking forward to it.
Matt, what was the atmosphere like? I don't even know if that's the right word, atmosphere, but what was it like in New York, on 9/11? You said you were a little further uptown, away from, the trade centers, but still you were in New York. So that day and the days that follow, I mean, everybody in America was so glued to the TV, to CNN, to NBC, CBS, and everybody had the flags flying and everybody was, scared. It felt like the world had changed in that moment. What was it like being there in New York? I imagine it had to be surreal. I'm sure a lot of paranoia, a lot of people wondering if there was going to be another attack. What was it? What do you remember about that day and the days that followed, just being there?
It's a great question, Kyle. I mean, one of my memories of that day is it was a beautiful day, crystal clear skies. I mean, just a picture perfect day. And I think what strikes me when I look back on it was just sort of the chaos and the confusion. And you're thinking to yourself, is this really happening, right? And when the first tower fell, when the first tower was hit, you really weren't sure at that point what happened, right? If it was a terrorist attack or if something happened internally. But then when the second tower was hit, that's when everybody knew something was happening, with a terrorist attack. And at that point, it was pretty chaotic, lots of, confusion, and really, what I tried to do was I just went back to my apartment. I put on the news and I just tried to see what was happening, but you couldn't get out of Manhattan. All the bridges and tunnels were completely closed off. So I would typically go home to New Jersey. I would take the GW Bridge to George Washington, but you couldn't get out. So you knew you were there. And just, for the days and weeks after that, it was just a very unique atmosphere. It was interesting to see people come together in full support of not only the country, but all of the first responders that were on, the grounds of 9/11. And, those people, I think it's important every year we need to stop and remember them and just sort of think about how much courage they had. And they're still suffering to this day. There are people that first responders from 9/11 that to this day are still sick and that people are still dying as a result 20 something years later. So, just a crazy day.
Matt, I had the opportunity, a huge honor. One of the things that, as many mistakes as I've made, as I said in my radio show that I was doing today, the very fact that hopefully with things like I've done with mission work to 9/11 to New York City, 2 different tours. The first time was very eye-opening, to say the least. We were cleaning apartments near Ground Zero with the North Carolina Baptist men and at Gateway Plaza downtown. And to see, I will say this, as I'm critical a lot of the media because I am a member of the media. The media usually is like the old cliche, it bleeds, it leads, as a TV cliche. And the very fact that was one of the most surreal things coming from a media perspective, the fact that the media was so respectful of those who, the firefighters and the EMS people that had fallen. And there was literally, I was on top of Gateway Plaza. I have pictures. I'll have to find them and show you guys at some point. That only reason I took them is of historical perspective, so I could show people the damage at some point down the line to get that feeling that I felt in that moment. But it was like a 4-block radius. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of damage that 2 planes and 19 terrorists, I believe most of which were from Saudi Arabia, who took down those 2 towers. And I was just so angry to think that New York City, a great city. I tell you what, you guys have great food. And New York City, I was amazed at the food. And I guess Kyle and I, we love to eat, right, Kyle? And so the food was excellent there. And I enjoyed a lot of things there about the city, but that's one of the things I'll never forget is how and also being an outsider, not being from New York City, obviously the people were very grateful and appreciative of all the people. We had the most hideous looking T-shirts and hats on ever, that we stood out even more so than our Southern accents or anything like that. But I'll never forget. It was just a great memory, and grateful to have the opportunity. And I tell you what, how are things now with the One Tower? Have you been back? That was one question I had for you tonight.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, right before COVID hit. I went down to the 9/11 museum and visited sort of, the grounds there, and they did a great job with it. I mean, they really, you could tell they really put a lot of thought into it. The new tower is awesome. It's very nice, and the memorial is great. The museum is definitely, something I would recommend if you're ever in Manhattan. It's definitely a nice way to sort of go back and sort of relive the events of that day. And they did a really great job with it. It's very classy, and they did a good job.
We can talk more later about obviously 9/11, and that's coming up on Saturday at the game. And speaking of the game, let's get back to football. In fact, Bubba has done a nice job, I know, of putting the graphic for the ECU South Carolina series. And we have that up on the screen for those who are listening, though. All-time series history. East Carolina has 5 and South Carolina 14. I know we have 1 win in Greenville, and South Carolina has 2. We have 4 wins in Columbia, and of course, South Carolina has 12. So South Carolina won the first 8 meetings. East Carolina went 5-3 in the 90s, including 4-2 in Columbia. And Matt, I tell you what, you guys, I remember that 96 game, for example. I believe that was the game that was raining, right? Is that my memory served me right on that one? That was
Harley.
With riding the Harley, Scott Harley there. But I remember that game very well, how it was one of those games where I guess if you're a football player, you love it. But if you're a fan, you're going, oh, my God, it's raining and more rain in Columbia.
Yeah, no, that was actually a fun game. And I think if I remember correctly, it's a long time ago, but we jumped up very early in that game. I think we took a pretty big lead in the first quarter. I think Scott Harley, who is a fellow New Jersey guy who I actually played against in high school, he had a hell of a game. He ran wild, and we had an awesome team that year. We were stacked. I mean, we had a lot of talent, and we went down there and we took care of business. So I have a lot of great memories playing at Williams-Brice. That's an awesome stadium, great fan base, and we were able to take 2, at that stadium. And then, ironically enough, South Carolina came to Dowdy-Ficklen with Anthony Wright at quarterback, and Deuce Staley. If you guys remember Deuce Staley from the Eagles was their running back. Yep. A great player, and they beat us pretty good in Greenville. So I have some really good memories playing against them.
And Dave, Johnny Gardner here a few minutes ago chimed in on YouTube saying that Rajay Harris will have a Mitchell Galloway-like game this weekend. Rajay is, of course, from the upstate, Burns High School, I believe it is. And then Mitchell Galloway is from Marlboro County High School in Bennettsville, South Carolina. And Mitchell really went off in that 1994 game.
Very good point. Johnny is way smarter than I am. It doesn't take much, but Johnny is one of our loyal viewers and friend of the show. And Matt, I tell you what, with Rajay Harris, with Keaton Mitchell, my goodness, I call them the law firm of Mitchell and Harris. I love those guys. I really do. They're going to put the law down. I really believe in them wholeheartedly. I think the running back room has been a real big surprise as well. The tight end room is looking good. My question to you, for being a football player, one of the criticisms that you hear from the last handful of years, and we haven't had the biggest offensive lineman or defensive lineman. How are you feeling about our line play? Because I know that you being a former player, you can be more articulate than I.
I'll certainly try. I think when Mike Houston took the job, he had a major challenge in front of him because the lines were so depleted. The previous administration did let's just say it the way it is. They did a horrendous job building depth. And when Mike Houston came in, he really didn't have, that much to work with. We had no depth whatsoever. I think he's done a very nice job in a short time rebuilding the roster and trying to build that depth. I think you look at us this year, and for the first time, at least in his tenure, you see that we have adequate size to compete. Again, it's certainly in the American, and hopefully we'll find out this weekend if it's good enough to compete against an SEC school. But I think he's done a nice job with that. I think we have really good size on our offensive line and defensive line too. But again, very young, a lot of youth on the defensive line. And the question is, can we execute to a level to knock off a team that comes from the SEC like a South Carolina? But I do think Coach has done a good job in a short time rebuilding both lines.
Yeah, and that's my concern too. I do think South Carolina's got a good O-line and good running backs, and they got a good D-line. And that's one thing, I mentioned earlier with Chris. The kind of ball Houston likes to play is physical, shove the ball up your ass, hard-nosed, go downhill, run the ball, old school football. That's what Houston likes to do, and that's great. The only problem is sometimes I think that makes it harder to pull off an upset than it does when you're running what Coach Ruff ran with a kind of an air raid where you can get by with a little bit lesser talent at the O-line because you get rid of the ball so fast. SEC, ACC schools don't see that every week. So that concerns me about pulling off the upset. What I do like is that it's Beamer's is game 2. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they're doing just yet. At least they shouldn't. They also, who's going to start a quarterback for them. I don't know they have much of a passing game, so they could be very one-dimensional. If you're trying to pull off an upset, if you can focus on taking the runaway because they can't pass it, it sure does make things a lot easier.
I certainly agree with that. I think you made a lot of great points there, Kyle. And, when you look at last week, let's just flash back to Appalachian State a little bit. We didn't give them enough to think about offensively. We really didn't make them work horizontally. We didn't really execute any wide receiver screens or any smoke screens on the outside. I think maybe we took one vertical shot down the field that I can recall. So we didn't do a good enough job of stretching the defense out. All right. Which is really something I think we need to address this week. If we just try to, sort of out-muscle South Carolina, we're going to lose that battle. We can't win that battle. Let's just be honest. What we need to do is we need to spread them out. We need to take some deep shots early in the game to loosen up their secondary. And then we need to stretch the field horizontally too. Let's mix in some wide receiver screens. Mm-hmm. Let's give them something to think about on defense, because if we just line up a hat on a hat, that's a losing battle for East Carolina. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And somebody that knows about winning at East Carolina, one of your teammates, Bubba, if we can put that comment on the screen, that question. So
Matt, Jeff Carr, a.k.a. Wood, chiming in on YouTube. He said, ask 2-Car Garage knows what his nickname is in Southern Miss.
That's my guy right there. I talked to Jeff before I was coming on. I told him I was coming on tonight, but me and Jeff have a running joke: who has the bigger nose? And hands down, it's Carr. I mean, he broke his nose so many times when he played here. It was like Pinocchio; it just kept growing over the years. So he'll lose that battle. But always good to hear from Jeff. Thanks. I knew that was coming.
But what's your nickname at Southern Miss?
I can't repeat it on the show because
you can repeat it unless it's racist or homophobic. We can handle swearing.
Well, I'll say so. We were down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Have you guys ever been there? You guys ever?
I have twice.
Some of my best friends are in Southern Miss. One of my best friends in the entire universe is a Golden Eagle. Okay,
so you remember then the bleachers are like right on top of the bench.
Yeah, MM Roberts is a very intimate stadium. Yep.
Yeah, so when you're on the sidelines, the fans are literally 5 feet, and they had some very choice words from me. Again, I'm not going to repeat it because my son's listening. I would repeat it for you guys, but I'll tell you offline someday. I know my son's listening, so I'm going to hold back. But we had some fun banter with their fans. And I was not one to sit there quietly. Like if a fan yelled at me or talked some kind of smack, I would yell back. And I had some choice words for them too. And it was fun. I mean, what's more fun than that?
Jeff,
right?
type the nickname in on the screen, please.
Hey, Matt, speaking of Southern Miss with you guys, I'll tell you one thing. I've said this for many years, and I know that Gilbert and a lot of people at the university listen to our show because we get phone calls. Good, all good, not anything bad. But one of the things for me is I would love to see that rivalry come back. If it's a series where 3 or 4 games or even a home and home at least. But, I mean, you talk about 2 fan bases that love football, and they've got some of the best fans there in Southern Miss. I hate that they're not with us.
Do a home and home every decade or so. There's no reason that can't be done.
Yeah, but that's something that I really want that game. I want that game back because they have really good – and I'm not just saying that because of we have Southern Miss fans that watch us and listen to us on a regular basis. I'm sincere when I say that. I think it's a great rivalry.
It really is. It was a fun rivalry. We had some great matchups back and forth. And now with I don't want to go down this road, but with conference realignment, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, who knows, right?
I think it's possible. I think Orozco's plan now is to try to get the top teams out of the Mountain West. If that doesn't work, and my guess is it won't, it's possible you could see Southern Miss back, in this conference. Not back in this conference, but us back together. The hot team you're hearing right now, if the Mountain West thing doesn't work out, is actually a school that used to be a laughingstock, UAB. Bill Clark has turned UAB into a power in Conference USA. They've won the league 2 out of the last 4 years. They are going to open up a brand new 45,000 seat stadium in downtown Birmingham in October. They have an indoor practice facility. I mean, who would have ever thought UAB would have a 45,000 seat stadium and an indoor practice facility? Them shutting down their football program and it being exposed what the University of Alabama system and Bear Bryant Jr. was doing to them was the best thing that could ever happen to them.
Unbelievable. I mean, that was a dead program. You're right. I mean, for them to bounce back this quick, it's unbelievable.
They can't be screwed around anymore in the system. People are aware of it now, what was going on, and the University of Alabama system can't do it to them anymore. And one person I think that spoke up on their behalf, who maybe he acted like he wasn't aware of that it was going on until the program was shut down. Who knows? But Saban supposedly spoke up on their behalf and said, leave them alone. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the word. I know, our buddy Tim Brando went to bat for him, and I'm really believe his outspokenness is one reason he's not on CBS anymore, because when that was going on and UAB was being forced out, he was talking about it on his radio show, speaking out against Alabama, and it wasn't too long after that he was off CBS.
Well, they don't have to worry about that anymore at CBS because they lost the contract with SEC. So,
yeah, and that's another interesting aspect. Also, with the Big 12 and the American, our contract with the American is through 2030. But now with the Big 12, is that a possibility for them to get more money because CBS needs content? Even without Texas and Oklahoma. CBS lost the SEC, but they're going to still want to air college football, and the Big 12 media contract's coming up with their multi-partner deal. So that CBS thing could work out well for them.
No doubt. I mean, that the whole thing right now, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but I'm very upset with. I thought that things would go our way, but yet again, we play the victim. We allow these teams to go. And I'm disappointed.
Well, I don't know what you expect the league to do, Dave.
I expect for us to be proactive and not reactive. We've had a chance. Connecticut didn't leave last week, and
I get what you're saying there, but it still wouldn't have changed anything in the aspect of the Big 12. I mean, we couldn't get them to merge, and if Cincinnati, the only way we're going to get them to merge is if you could tell if Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston would hold pat. That's the only way we're going to make that merger happen with the Big 12. But as long as they're willing to leave, there's nothing we can do. I think Orozco was more aggressive than other conference commissioners would have been initially, and I think.
But you get beat by Bob Bowlesby. You get beat by Bob Bowlesby.
You don't get beat by Bob Bowlesby. You get beat by the Big 12. It's still got name recognition.
He's the worst commissioner in all of college football, and you get beat by him.
Dave, I really don't know what you expected Michael Ratz. I don't know what you expected him to do.
Well, you know what's really crazy about it, guys, is like, ESPN is our in some ways they're our best friend, and in some ways they're our worst enemy.
Correct.
I mean, it's really a shame how and let me just say, ESPN does an incredible job covering college football. I think that's the best thing they do as a network now. But it's a shame that they've sort of controlled the landscape of college football. Yep. And it's really a shame to me that we've moved away from regional rivalries, right? You take teams like Syracuse and you put them in the ACC, Boston College. There should be a conference regionally, in the northern part of the country, the northeast part of the country for teams like that. It's good for the fans. But now it's just chaos. You take a West Virginia, you put them in the Big 12, right? It's never been a great fit. And that's all because of money. Let's face it, it's all because of money. And it's just a shame that the NCAA has really given away so much control to the networks.
Yeah, and college football is complete. It ain't coming back around anytime soon. And that's why I say the answer isn't to get mad at Mike Orozco. The answer is for these ADs to grow a set of nuts and sue the Power Five. You need to sue for antitrust law. They've created a monopoly. It's unfair. And I think you sue them. And they either give us access to the playoff. That path was being headed down. We were about to get access to the playoff. And they've just put a halt to that, the 12-team expansion of the playoff. And that, to me, is really, there's going to be a disparity in money. But if you give that 12-team playoff access where the top 6 conference champions get a playoff spot, who cares who's in the Big 12? Because if East Carolina wins the American, we're going to have a chance to go to the playoff. But they just, that looked like it was going to happen just a couple of months ago. But now all of a sudden they said, let's just table that for now, guys. So to me, it's time for some people to sue, and they either give us what we want, which is a fair chance, in making the playoff and being able to build a program to compete for making the playoff, or either they get pissed and take their ball and go home, and the Power Five breaks away. What do we have to lose at this point?
No doubt. And, guys, the very fact is funny because the 12-team playoff, everybody was so emphatically, yes, it's going to happen. And then what happened is when Commissioner Sankey of the SEC, basically what they're going to do, it's not for the betterment of college football. Surprise, surprise. It's actually so the SEC can get a whole bunch of teams of those 12 in the playoff. And when the ACC, when the Big Ten, and when the Pac-12 found that out, that's why they had the alliance to stop all that, is they don't want 6 or 8 of the, let's say it's 6 or 8 of the SEC teams in the 12-team playoff, and that would actually hurt us. So all of a sudden, what we thought was a great thing at first, then we found out the real reason for.
Well, it wouldn't hurt us. If you got your 6 highest-ranked conference champions, it wouldn't hurt us. What it would hurt is the other Power 5 schools. If you got your 6 highest-ranked conference champions and the other, then the rest of it's the SEC. Then everybody's only got one team in except the SEC. Wouldn't hurt us, not one bit. Wouldn't hurt the American. What it would hurt is the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 and the Big 10.
If the language in the contract is that way, which I don't think it would. It is that way now, but I don't think it would remain that way. But anyway, that's a whole nother the show to say. What do you see for this game on Saturday, high noon? We're very happy you're coming back. We love when. This is one of the great things about this coaching staff. They love you guys. They love the former players, as they should. And we didn't have that in the previous administration. How do you feel about coming back? And I know you don't get a chance to come down here very much, but what are your thoughts for the game on Saturday?
I'm so excited to get back in town, and I'm really looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think, when I sort of take a look at this game and I think about how we can win, I keep going back to one thing, and it's I think what South Carolina is going to try to do is they're going to try to line up in a lot of bunch formations, 12 personnel with one back and two tight ends. I think they're going to try to pound us, right? And I think for us, if we can stop the run on first down and put them in situations where it's maybe 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and we can get them off the field, we have a chance to win. If we look back at this game next week and South Carolina was effective on first down and getting themselves in situations where it's, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5 because they got 5 yards on first down, it's going to be a very long day. So I think stop the run on first down, try to get them off the field and create some situations where we can get some extra possessions. I think another thing that scares me about this game is when I look at special teams, because Beamer ball really showed up last week in the South Carolina game, and they did block 2 punts. I saw that, and I thought they actually blocked a third. So they were coming after every punt, and if our punt protection team is not ready, they're going to be coming. So we need to be prepared for that. So I think special teams are going to play a big part in it too. And then offensively, let's stretch the field a little bit. Let's let it hang out. We don't have to be a ground and pound team this week. Let's take some vertical shots. Let's make these guys work. Let's stretch the field a little bit, mix in some wide receiver screens, and really try to create some confusion for them. So there's a lot of things that we can do to win this game, but we have to be able to execute.
I'm not saying it because you're on the podcast, on the show, but what I'm looking for on the defensive side of the ball is I really believe that our D-backs are very strong. I'm looking at the linebacker play, and I want to get your thoughts because the linebacker play, I really believe, obviously when you think about linebackers, is a big part of stopping the run. But that's one of the keys that I'm really looking forward to. I forgot I was going to ask you that question earlier on. But what do you think about that, the linebacker play for this team?
Yeah, can we bring back Jeff Carr for this game? Because we could certainly use
you guys.
We could certainly use Jeff at middle linebacker, no doubt about it.
Whatever you do, Matt, don't get Dave starting to ask if you have eligibility left. Okay.
I wouldn't last more than 3 plays.
We're gonna put you out there, Kyle.
Put me out there. Hey, to do what?
We'll play some defense. Maybe you can tackle.
I'm following somebody. He's asking about linebacker play. What do you think of our current linebacker core?
Well, I didn't think last week they did a very good job. I'll be honest. We didn't get downhill. We were out of position a lot of the time. Our run fits were not good. Appalachian State really creates some problems with the outside stretch play. We didn't do a good job with it.
Which is the key to their offense? That offense that.
Yeah,
they've been running that for a while, and it is even at Louisville what they're trying to do now. It is all predicated on that outside stretch play.
Yeah, they execute it. They do a tremendous job running that play. One thing that I'm not sure about yet, and we'll see how it plays out, is moving Xavier Smith, who I thought was our best linebacker, our most athletic linebacker, to edge rusher. That concerns me a little bit, and time will tell how that plays out. I trust the coaching staff; they know far more than me about the personnel that they have. But time will tell if that's a good move. But we need to get downhill. Our linebackers need to get downhill and attack. If we're catching, if you're sitting back and you're sort of catching against an SEC team like this, you're going to get moved off the line of scrimmage, and like I said, they're going to run the ball. I'll say this, guys. If you watch that Eastern Illinois game from last week, South Carolina, Eastern Illinois, and I watched most of the game, they were not pushing Eastern Illinois around. They really weren't. I don't know if you guys saw it. They were getting, they have some chunk plays here and there, but it's not like they really dominated the line of scrimmage. And I think your guest earlier, Chris, sort of alluded to that.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. They got 4 returning starters on that offensive line. I know it's a new coaching staff, but that's kind of surprising to me.
I agree. I was surprised with that too. So, but what that tells me is that if we come ready to play, we can hopefully hold our own on the line of scrimmage. And to Dave's point about the linebackers, get downhill, tackle, wrap up. Yeah. We need to tackle. We can't have them this running back breaking tackles and just, you know, getting extra yardage. So it's time to play. So we'll see what happens.
And
yeah, obviously Kevin Harris, leading rusher in the SEC a season ago, over 1,000 yards despite the reduced number of games. And then you have Zaquandre White, who had such a big day against Eastern Illinois. I believe and I can't remember if we referenced this when we were talking to Chris. I want to say he started his career as a linebacker at Florida State. But he was a large back, and you saw the way he looked, even though it was against an inferior opponent. But yeah, so he's a stud as well.
No doubt. And one of the things that I want to mention too, that I was texting back and forth with Coach Jeff Connors this week. One of the things that he brought up to me, I want to mention that this is just, how about this stat for you, Kyle, for ECU football in the 90s? Okay, you ready, guys? In the 90s, we played 41 times against Power 5 teams and won 26 times. In fact, while he was ECU, he won 35 games over Power 5 opponents. So I wanted you to give a chance to talk about Coach C, and I know with the former players how much you loved him.
Yeah, Coach C, man, I have so many memories with him, and you know, I always loved playing for him. I really did. The expectations were so clear, and like, you know, when you think about certain coaches that you've, you know, had during your career, certain coaches have very clear expectations, and it was always crystal clear with him. You show up every day, you work as hard as you possibly can, and he was going to push you to your limit. You know, he was going to push you to your max, and you know, in 4 years, I had a great relationship with Coach Connors. You know, I never had one issue with him in 4 years. Like, he just, you know, he knew I was going to show up and I was going to work as hard as I could. And I appreciated that about him too. So I think he was instrumental in that, you know, like when you look back at the history of the 90s, he was instrumental because he would put us through some brutal workouts in the summer that I think if you did today, I don't know if it would be allowed to, you know, to go through some of those workouts in today's world. But he would push us through some brutal workouts, and he definitely had those teams in top-notch physical condition. And you know, he had us mentally believe that regardless of who we played, we were going to take the game to them. So I can't possibly, like, you know, say, you know, put it into words how important he was to the program during those years. And all the guys will tell you that for the most part.
We've had some players, former players that went to the NFL, and they said that when they went to the NFL, they thought, oh my God, it's going to be like, you know, Coach C, and they go to the NFL, and the NFL conditioning and the NFL, all the stuff they went through was a cakewalk compared. Not saying it was easy, but a lot easier than Coach C.
No doubt about it. I always share this story too, because again, you can't do these things anymore. But in summer camp, in our August camps in Eastern North Carolina, which I'm still convinced is the hottest place on earth, by the way, we would do 3-a-days. All right. 3-a-days with a weight room session in between, and then film sessions mixed in between all of that. So you'd leave the house at 5 a.m. You might get home at 8 o'clock at night, and you were gassed. And those 3-a-days were brutal. And now I think you can only have like a handful of 2-a-days. Forget 3-a-days. You can only have like a handful of 2-a-days. So, you know, like I always joke around, I say, you know, people talk about Bear Bryant and the Junction Boys. Listen, I don't want to hear about the Junction Boys. If you come go through a Coach Connors camp in the 90s, and let's see what it's all about.
And Matt, as far as the guys, do you remember when our good friend Terry Gallagher, that played wide receiver under Pat Dye, I think there was 4-a-days back there in the late 70s, 4-a-days.
My God. Yeah, they probably look at us and think that was easy.
So I guess it's all relevant. Eventually it's going to be a 1-a-day, right? Or no days. I mean, it's ridiculous how it just keeps getting less.
Pretty soon you won't be able to hit anybody in college football. It drives me nuts. Can I just make a point about that too? I think one thing that's really Thank you. I think one thing that's plaguing college football right now are when you see the hits that they consider to the head, right? And let's say you're a free safety and you have a wide receiver running full speed. It's not very easy to slow yourself down and aim for your target and say, I'm going to hit this guy a little bit lower. And then what they do is they throw the flag and they kick the guy out of the game, which is just absurd to me. In my opinion, what they should start doing is give a warning. If you go to the head, you get a warning and a flag, you're going to get the penalty. If it happens twice, then you're removed from the game. I just think it's awful how, these kids prepare all week to play a college football game and they get thrown out for sometimes like a really ticky-tack hit to the head.
There should probably be two levels of targeting. One where you get a warning and then one where you get thrown out. I think if that initial targeting is blatant, you should get thrown out. But if it's incidental contact to the head because you can't pull up, a referee can tell that if he unless he's just doesn't care or maybe wants the other team to win. But you could typically tell if a guy was trying to pull up or not.
Well, I think they don't know how to call that call. They, I agree with safety. I mean, who doesn't want safety for the game? But football is a violent sport. I just don't understand. That's one thing I think that the targeting rule is unfair because I believe that it definitely favors the offense, and they want more. I think that maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I think they want more points on the board, and they knew that. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I don't think
CTE is a real thing. I mean,
no, I know that. I'm just saying it's always going to be there, regardless if you have the targeting. You can throw out 50 players. I mean, it's always going to be there, no matter what you do.
I agree with you. I think you can probably do something to make the maybe pad the helmets more. I think there's more that you can do on that end with the way technology keeps advancing, rather than trying to change the game so much.
It's ridiculous the even conversation of not having kickoffs. I mean, that's one of the best parts of. I mean, that's the most absurd thing I've ever. And I coached football a little bit. I didn't play football. That's a regret I have in life. I wish I could go back. I can't. But I love the game.
You don't have a time machine?
What's that?
You don't have a time machine?
I wish I did, man. If I did, I would definitely go back, man. There was a lot of games back in the day I would love to go back and see again. But you definitely have all those on DVD. I know, Kyle. I can.
If you want to watch some more games, let me know. In fact, I've been trying. Hey, Matt, did you record your games from when you played? Did you have anybody recording games for you?
You know what? My father did a pretty awesome job with that. He
97 Wake Forest. Do you have it?
Let me look. Let me check it out for you. I might have it.
All right. If you have 97 Wake Forest, we can make something happen. We can trade something. We can do something. I have been trying to get a copy of that game for over 20 years now, and it was televised on Fox Sports South, which was not available in Greenville until a month after that game aired. And I'm convinced nobody has a copy of it.
And living in the Winston-Salem area at the time, Matt, you'll remember this late in that ball game when we rallied from 3 touchdowns down, and gradually as the game wore on, you had folks saying, please keep the whistles quiet in the stands. You remember that? They were saying Pirate fans were blowing whistles.
Yeah, I do remember
that. Is that right?
And so that's what Wake Forest was crying about, and you had it on the Winston-Salem Journal headlines talking about, or at least the subheading there, about whistles in the stands as the Pirates rally for, was it 25-24 or something like that?
Yeah, it was like 27-25. It was a weird score, but 3 touchdown comeback. What do you remember about that game? We're playing South Carolina, but we'll talk about the Wake Forest game. What do you remember about that Wake Forest game in Greenville? It's the first ACC opponent to come to Greenville since Wake Forest did the first time, way back when. And,
the very first game of Dowdy-Ficklen, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we got down 21-0 and come back to beat Wake. What do you remember about that game?
I remember, just like you guys were saying, we were down big. We were very sloppy in the first half. It took us a while to sort of get things going. I think the thing that kind of jumps out the most, I think Rod Coleman had a strip sack near the end of the game, which gave us sort of the go ahead touchdown.
Right.
Yeah, but I just remember we were very sloppy in the first half. We just couldn't get anything going. We couldn't make a play. And then eventually we, momentum changed a little bit. We started clawing back. We made some plays, and then we were able to put them away in the fourth quarter. But that was a fun game. That was an intense game.
If I remember correctly, it was 21-0. In the second quarter, the Pirates scored a touchdown and then got an onside kick, if I remember right. Scored again.
That's right.
And cut it to 21-14 right before half. And then the second half, it was just a war until we finally put it away.
Yeah, that was one of my early days of covering the Pirates right out of college, and that was a great game. I'll tell you one thing, I was really happy with the way that game turned out, and I remember walking into the Ward Sports Medicine building covering that game with back in the day, we had a huge cassette player called a Marantz, and we had like a Bob Barker mic, and I'll never forget walking thinking, I was thinking, praying there was some way the Pirates could pull that out, because it's a lot more fun with Coach Logan in a press conference with a win. Maybe the South Carolina game. I guess there was that one that we're after the West Virginia game. Remember that, Kyle?
96 South Carolina. Yeah, he was fired up. We won this game on the last play of last week's game. You don't come to East Carolina. You don't coach to East Carolina. You don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. You go for it every time.
And he screamed. It's like the East Carolina lost by 50 points, Logan was always that way. If we lost the game, he was very subdued. It was a very awkward experience. But if you win the game, he was fired up like we'd lost.
He must have made it very entertaining.
That's right. Write it. That was like a Kyle moment, like cutting a promo like Kyle from LaGrange,
All right, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry, Bob. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was saying, the local media must have loved having Logan in town, because those press conferences must have been very entertaining, because he was not one to hold back. Talk about opinions. I mean, he would definitely put it out there.
One of my favorite Coach Logan moments was 96. We just beat NC State to end the regular season, and he was asked about Chad Hokum, and something about Chad Hokum, and he said Chad's been inconsistent his whole career, and now it's over.
Oh wow! I don't remember that one.
I do.
Well, I can tell you one thing. You guys, I've always said this. I hurt for that 96 team, and I know it's been a long time. But that 96 team going 8-3 when you have wins over Miami, NC State, that was a close game, that first game of the year against West Virginia. I remember that season very, very well. And to be 8-3, with this day and age, you guys would obviously have gone to a bowl, but there's ridiculous with the resume you have back then not to go to a bowl. But anyway, that's like the 83 team. We could argue there's other teams that got shafted when it comes to going to a bowl and a decent bowl. But you guys definitely should have gone into a bowl that year.
There's no question about it. I mean, if you look back, I think at all the teams I was a part of, and I was incredibly fortunate to be at East Carolina during that time, because it was just an awesome time in the program. But I think that might have been our best team, honestly, and we didn't make a bowl game. And that year, I mean, there were just some awesome moments. If you guys remember, and I always kind of go back to this. And this is a good lesson, for young players too. We lost to Southern Miss on a Thursday night, and we got our ass kicked.
It was 28-0 at halftime, right?
This
Matt?
is a great example for this very week, Matt.
That's exactly where I'm going, Kyle. We got our ass kicked, and it was embarrassing. And Southern Miss was, when you played Southern Miss back then, they were probably the hardest hitting team. I mean, it was a war. I mean, they had a lot of NFL talent, and they really took it to us. And that week in practice, the following week, we were playing the Miami Hurricanes. I think they were ranked number 11 or 12 in the country, and we were a big underdog. And we we got worked in practice that next week. And you know, you talk about a tough week of practice and getting a team's attention. And Logan definitely got our attention that week. And again, the great thing about those teams is like we just had some amazing players that, you know, they just felt like, you know, no matter what, we're going to go down to the Orange Bowl and we're going to bounce back. And the following week, after getting beat like that, we go down to the Orange Bowl, big underdog, and totally flipped the script. And we took it to them. I mean, that was an ass whooping in a big way. And yeah, so.
Yeah, man. I remember Coach Logan talking on his television show about how just how practice was, like you're saying, extremely physical and, you know, getting after it after that Southern Miss loss. And he said, I had no idea whether we were going to win the game or not. But, you know, just seeing the way our team handled that, and then the guys just looks on their faces in the locker room, I knew we were going to come out and put our best foot forward. And he said now he could finally go home and get some sleep.
He really while everybody else is shag dancing on the tailgate fields, he was in his office throwing up, he would always say. So but anyway, Matt, man, before we let you go, what do you think? Did the Pirates win in front of you and Dowdy-Ficklen on Saturday?
So there's no way I can make this trip down there, all the way down there from Connecticut, and then come on this show.
Oh man, you could just stay there and watch UConn football. Are you gonna apply for that job?
Kyle, that would be a self-imposed torture. I mean, you talk about a dead program, but there's not much to watch when you live in this state, I'll tell you. So you guys have no idea how fortunate you are. I'm there's no way I'm going to make this trek and predict anything but a win. I think this is the week we bounce back. I don't think it's going to be as low scoring as some of the earlier predictions, but I'm going to go with 35-31 Pirates. Write it.
35-31. You're taking the over. 58 is the over under.
I'm taking it.
Wow, you're taking the over. 35-31. Wow. Okay. All right.
Would you expect anything different from a guy that won a lot of games in East Carolina? Let's roll.
I would not expect him to pick us to lose, but I did not expect 35-31. That is surprising to me. I hope you're right, because it would make for a much more entertaining football game. But Matt taking the over.
I'm going with the over. Now, if I was putting money on it, I might go another way.
But your heart's saying Pirates all the way.
Bubba, we've been waiting for your prediction all game.
Yeah.
You ain't copping out. Give us a prediction.
No, Jeff Card chimed in again, Matt. I was going to go to this a few minutes ago. He said, Matt's a true New Yorker, only person I know with the nose impersonation of the Lincoln Tunnel. You could drive a Mack truck through those nostrils.
Well, that's a good one, Jeff. But Listen, there will be a time when he comes on this show, and I'll be right there.
Jeff Carr, you're welcome always. Wood is always welcome here, man. He's always welcome.
Oh, you guys should have him. He'd be a great guest. But Pinocchio has jokes tonight, so it's all good.
I think what we should do, we'll have a spinoff of the Sports Objective. We'll let the two of you all host a show.
Nose to nose with Matt and Jeff.
That would be entertaining. That would be entertaining.
All right, Bubba, give me your score.
I really don't have a score.
Oh, man.
No, after last week, I mean, I really think I know we can win the game, but I think I'm going to kind of go with the same direction that Chris Phillips went as far as South Carolina winning a fairly competitive ball game, just because of the lines of scrimmage until I'm proven otherwise, and until we can do what we need to do in that area, stopping the run and running the ball against a team that is pretty good in the front seven. I don't know. I just struggled to predict us to win, but I definitely think we can win, and hopefully we'll find a way to get it done.
And that secondary for South Carolina, they need to, Matt, you were right. I'll mention this point and we'll let you go. they need to, when you said be vertical, they need to go deep. They need to challenge that secondary. I think the D-backs, what I'm hearing of the South Carolina team, is their weakest part of the defense. So he has an arm on him, and to keep them honest, because if you don't, the conservative playbook, Holt Naylor's, this is his 4th year. I'm sorry, it's his 4th year. He knows the offense. It's not like it's Coach Houston's first year as a coach and a first-year coordinator. Donnie Kirkpatrick has been his coordinator. I believe this is year 3 for Donnie being back. So to me, you got to go for broke. You got to go big or go home, because if not, if you play too conservative as far as the playbook is concerned, then you're going to get a lot of L's this year. I just really feel that. And Kyle made that point last year. They opened up the playbook. They played more to what the personnel they had. They're going to have to open up the playbook, let their player. We've got playmakers. We have C.J. Johnson, Tyler Snead. We've got a lot of great players as far as wide receiver. We got running back.
Mitchell.
We've got to find a way to get the ball in Mitchell's.
Josiah Hatfield getting involved. Hatfield and Keaton Mitchell. Whether it's outside zone runs or Josiah Hatfield on jet sweeps or end arounds, things of that nature.
Everything. Try trick
play.
play.
Line Snead up in the line. Not Snead. Let's try. Let's try. Can we line up? Keaton Mitchell in the slot?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see it. Yeah, and can we try some up tempo too?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I know you've been on that train for a while, Matt, and I agree with you. And Donnie Kirkpatrick, at the coordinator's report earlier in the week, he said that we function best when we're playing with a little tempo. So I'm very interested to see about that as well. And that's something that can be an equalizer, when you're outmanned in the trenches a bit.
Absolutely.
Man, it just works. You saw really quick. I don't want to overtalk here, but Penn State. Did you guys catch the Penn State-Wisconsin game last week?
No,
did
but
not.
Wisconsin is not as. I heard that this week on Sirius XM ESPNU radio about Wisconsin was a big disappointment past week.
Yeah, they totally shut Penn State down in the first half. They were locked up, had nowhere to go. And so what Penn State did at halftime was they received the ball and they went right to an up tempo and they scored right away. And then I think they finished the game like 2 or 3 drives in the fourth quarter. They went up tempo and they pulled it off. So I was just thinking of East Carolina. I think that's something we could do to help ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that goes to my point about trying to pull off an upset. We're not going to do it trying to run the ball down their throats. We got some good running backs and we'll get some rushing yards on them. But I think running tempo, being creative on offense, try to force some turnovers. Another key thing, and we'll wrap this up for us to win.
Yep.
I think sometimes it's not what you do, it's what the other team does sometimes. And I go back again. I don't know how good old Zeb is at quarterback. If they don't have their guy, he's supposedly not going to play. It's going to be Zeb again. If they're one dimensional, it'll make it a lot easier to shut down the run game. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Like you're saying, Kyle, last week you had Chase Bryce, who had a lot of time to throw for the most part, and then you had those very talented, super senior wide receivers like Thomas Hennigan and Corey Sutton, et cetera, running wide open. So we're going to have to find a way to get some pressure on the quarterback, and I really don't think South Carolina's got the playmakers on the perimeter that App State does, as crazy as that may sound. And I think Chris Phillips would probably agree with that. They're searching for some playmakers at wide receiver. So hopefully we'll find a way to cover better this week and slow the running game down enough.
Yeah, and I'll go back to again, sometimes a offense that really knows what they're doing and knows how to execute can make your defense look a hair slow, because the defense in game one's having to think. And if you on offense are super seniors and you've been running that same system for 5 years, you don't have to think. You're just going. And I think the game may come a little slower for the defense this week, even though the offense is going to be talented at the line of scrimmage. I think the defense is going to have more time to react.
No doubt.
Great point.
Matt, we want to tell you have a safe trip down. And obviously, one last question for you. Where are you eating when you're in Greenville on Saturday? Is there a place that you want to hit up, or a place maybe memories or?
Man, it's changed so much. I'm going to take your guys' recommendation. I need some Southern food. I can't get, you don't get any good Southern food up here. So,
Oh man,
if you guys can point me in the right direction, because I'm sure most of the places I used to go to they're probably gone.
Well,
Sam Jones
Bees
barbecue
is always good for barbecue. Parker's is still here for fried chicken and barbecue.
Sam Jones is the hot spot right now for barbecue.
Sam Jones down in Winterville, good barbecue. They got sweet potato corn muffins. Got a bigger variety of different barbecue items in traditional Eastern North Carolina. So Sam Jones, and then I haven't tried it, but Moore's barbecue
It's
and
very
seafood.
good.
I hear good things. Dave says it's very good. Do you like seafood? There's a good seafood place on Greenville Boulevard called Hook and Reel. If you like low country bulls, peel and eat shrimp, that kind of stuff, I'd recommend them.
Okay.
And then if non-Southern, Villa Verde is really good if you want something different. And guys, did you see the news today? Villa Verde will have a food truck inside Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium for all whole games this year. So get yourself an empanada or a Cuban sandwich from the folks at Villa Verde.
Yeah, it's Dominican Republican, right?
Dominican food. Yep.
Great food. And the prices for Villa Verde, I know we're not doing a commercial. Jay, as the owner, hey, you can definitely.
We can definitely have them do a commercial there.
It's very good food, Matt. One of the best in Greenville, one of the best restaurants, and the price. Not only is it great food, but the prices for Villa Verde you would think would be very expensive. It's actually reasonably priced too. So another right. So
anyway, all right, I appreciate that. Yeah, and vice versa. You guys ever come north? I'll point you to some good Italian restaurants. All right?
Oh man, good. I love that. No doubt. Matt, man, appreciate you so much. We didn't expect it, but we love talking football. We appreciate your insight and you're so articulate on football, and we appreciate it and love to have you back on again during the season, because I think we're going bowling still, regardless of the week, how it comes out. But certainly I feel good about 21.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I always enjoy it. That was fun, and I'm always happy to come back on anytime. So hopefully we can get this W.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
All right, no doubt about it. And hey, by the way, fans, right after the game, or hopefully after the game, if we have a Pirate victory, Pirate football playback will be on this weekend. And we'll have Alan Thomas, former mayor of Greenville, alum of East Carolina, will be joining us with Kyle, Bub, and myself, and maybe former players dropping by. Hopefully we can talk about 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. We'll be there at the premium lot.
If we win, if we lose, then get back with us on post-game time. But if we win, we plan to do it live from the parking lot post-game. Stop by and say hey.
That would be great. And bring some Pirate beverages for Kyle after the game, right, Kyle?
Absolutely, after the game. If we win.
And some barbecue. All right, we'll have that. We've got lots of great content, obviously. Bubba, I know that we have, for those that are maybe just joining us, we've got stuff from earlier in the week. So if you want to go back and review that before the game. And do you have anything, guys, before we go?
Just looking forward to Saturday. 45,000 hopefully we'll have in there. It'll definitely be over 40. It's going to be about as well as you can expect weather to be for a 12 o'clock kickoff. Forecasting a high of 82. Your overnight low Friday night is going to be 59, so you're probably talking maybe at kickoff time 78 to 80 degrees. Nice. So it'll get warm as the day goes on. But you couldn't ask for probably much better. So just go enjoy it, win or lose. But it sure would be a lot more enjoyable if we can pull off this. I'm going to call it an upset, and I don't care what the spread is. It's East Carolina against an SEC school, as down as we've been. It's an upset if we can pull it off. Enjoy it. If we do it, it's a big day. Let the students enjoy it. If you want to run on the field, run on the field. Let's make this a big deal. If we can win this, let's celebrate it.
No doubt about it. Do you see this as a signature win for Houston, Kyle?
Oh, God, yes. The signature win for the program. We haven't beaten an SEC school since 1999. So, yeah, it's a signature win not only for Houston, but for East Carolina football. When you haven't beaten a team since 99 or a team from that conference since 99, yeah, it's signature.
All right. Bubba, do you have anything before we go?
I will say, as much as I, understand that Shane Beamer has a knowledge of East Carolina and, what our program's history is, I wholeheartedly disagree with what he was saying in terms of this.
Biggest home game in history.
This is possibly the biggest home game in East Carolina history, not by a long shot. And like a lot of East Carolina fans pointed out on social media, be it Twitter, Facebook, or what have you, it probably would not be top 10. I mean, you think about some of the games that you've had against the likes of
the biggest home game in East Carolina.
Miami moved to Raleigh, but then you have West Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse at different times. I mean, there's a lot of games that are much bigger than this. But it would be awesome to get a win over the Gamecocks, nonetheless, with where we've been in the last 6 years.
Yeah. The biggest home game in East Carolina history. You're overthinking it, Bob. It was Pitt in '91.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just wasn't going to name all of them, but yeah, that's 91 Pitt. There's so many of them.
Yeah,
I think hands down that's it. I mean, I don't know what
because of the magnitude of the trajectory of that season that made East Carolina 6-1, and really, I think we had gone into the polls prior to that game after defeating Syracuse in the Carrier Dome, which was our first win on the road against a ranked opponent, and then got to 6-1 against Pitt, and Pitt was also ranked at the time.
Yep.
And that sent that season into what it became at 11-1.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great game, regardless of whatever perspective, East Carolina or South Carolina. Good luck to the Pirates, and I tell you what, guys, I can't wait to 3:30. I feel good about this game, and we'll see how it turns out. All right, for our great guests we have tonight, and for Bubba and Kyle, I'm Dave Richmond, and join us sometime after the game. For our Pirate football playback right here on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.
Copy that. Everybody in the stands go bananas, scream loud, baby, don't hold back. Every foot, every yard, every first down, every touchdown with the